Welcome to the Property Guide. You're watching ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. Like we keep saying, this is your one-stop guide to all property investments in the country. And before we get any further, if you have feedback or questions about buying a home, feel free to write to us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. We have a very exciting show lined up for you today. And a massive thing happened this week for us as, buyers of homes in this country. The Cabinet approved the long-pending real estate regulator bill. Now, this has been going back and forth and being talked about for a very long time. It will now be tabled in Parliament before it's made an act. And we're going to talk about how it changes things for you and me. What does it bring in? How long will it take before we actually see this introduced? Why don't we take a look at the changes in this bill and the details of what's being written down, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
The Union Cabinet approved amendments to the much-awaited real estate regulatory bill. The bill, aiming to bring transparency into the system, amended many provisions that will impact home buyers like you. One of the positive aspects of the revised bill was including mandatory provision of getting consent of 2/3 of the buyers for change in plan or design of a project. Also now, residential, commercial and industrial projects will come under the authority's jurisdiction. While the revised bill has included provisions to protect buyers, including an additional window to approach consumer courts for their grievances, it has deleted a clause which provided appellate tribunal the power to punish any individual of a real estate company for contempt of not complying with the orders or direction of the regulator. Real estate brokers and agents found a mention as well. Now they have also been included under the purview of the bill. One of the major changes in the bill was the reduction of minimum balance to be maintained in the escrow account of a project from 70% to 50%. This provision is expected to allow developers to continue their practice of diverting funds collected for a project. Under the penal provisions, the proposed law includes payment of 10% of project cost for non-registration and another 10% of project cost or 3 years imprisonment or both if still not complied with.
All right, so that was the bill. In the studio with me, Ramesh Nair, CEO and International Director, JLL India. He's also on the Global Board of RICS. Ramesh, thank you so much for coming in. Lalit Kumar Jain is the Chairman and MD of Kumar Urban Developers. Lalit, thank you so much for joining us. And Jayashree Kurup, Head of Content and Research at magicbricks.com. Jayashree, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Ramesh, I want to come in first and start with this. Obviously, the bill has been tabled in Parliament before, then it went back to the drawing board, it's going to come back again. How long will it be before this actually becomes an act?
It's going to take some time, couple of uncertainties. So one is it has to be cleared by both houses and it has to become an act. Second is state level. There would be various state level legislations which will have to be changed. And that's the states have been given a year's time to enact it. So that'll again take time. So people rejoicing, thinking that the act has already happened, will have to wait. Overall, our take is definitely the pros outweigh the cons. It's definitely a welcome move for the consumer. I don't understand why there is so much of apprehension on simple things like the developer needs to deliver a project on time. Developer shouldn't misrepresent. He should quote carpet area and make it more transparent. He should only launch the project after he gets all approvals. All these kind of regulations have been there internationally in Western developed markets for ages. And finally, it's coming to India. So overall, our take is it's definitely a positive move from the government side.
Well, I want to quickly ask you this. It also includes now brokers and agents. That would include companies like the one that you represent. How big a change is this going to be? Obviously, for the corporate side of it, it will be easier to bring things into force. But the large group, the force on the ground of brokers and agents, how difficult will this be to implement?
So 2-3 impacts on real estate agents. First is we can only market projects which are already registered. Second, we need to be registered ourselves. Global property consultants like us, it's part of the DNA. We are to make the real estate markets more transparent and ethical. So it wouldn't impact us much, although we will have to now follow the local regulations and get ourselves registered as per this act.
All right, I want to bring Lalit in here. Lalit, I know that one of the problems that you had with the format of the bill was that it didn't in fact include the clearance or the approval process. And you said that a lot of developers complain that things get delayed because approvals don't come in on time, and that particular issue has not been addressed. Do you think that that is the biggest disadvantage from where you're looking at it? Because Ramesh just said that he doesn't understand why people are so apprehensive about this bill.
I agree with Ramesh. There should be no apprehension as far as these aspects which he mentioned. But there is a bigger picture. What we wanted regulator for sure. We wanted regulator which is comprehensive, which regulates entire industry, and it doesn't become only consumer grievance cell. This legislation, if I read press note correctly, is piece of legislation to protect consumer only. Second, there is no definition how and when registration will be revoked. You see, mere complaint by consumer, and as we have experienced in many departments, if there is an officer who is appointed by government, that means there is a tendency or there is a fear that he may play in the hands of politicos, and politicos will run this business. Now, there is a high risk involved with this kind of scenarios. I think regulator is given immense power, and therefore our apprehension unfortunately may come true that it will be a huge breeding ground of corruption.
I want to bring in Jayashree here. Jayashree, from the research you've done so far on, and we don't have a lot of information, like Lalit said, we're going on the press note and what we've heard from the government so far. Do you believe that it might turn into another window, another bottleneck, or do you think that from a consumer's point of view, this is a very, very welcome move?
See, the problem is like this. The real estate regulatory bill is a very welcome move, and I think that it is something that will protect the consumer. But the consumer has to be protected against all the areas of which cause the delay. And today, a large part of the delay is that it takes 18 to 24 months for a developer to get sanctions of a project. And even after that, even when a project is completed, there have been many cities where the completion certificates there's delay in issuing the completion certificates by the authorities. Now, this has been glossed over, and de facto what has been assumed is that the real estate market's problems are all because of the developers and the agents, and if we can regulate them, we can regulate them well, and the problems are all solved. I personally think that that is not the case. The authorities that delay approvals are equally responsible for the state of affairs in the real estate market. Therefore, the developers are rightly apprehensive, I would say, and the consumer needs to watch before he pops open the champagne bottles.
All right, no bubbly for anybody right now. But the other thing we have to talk about is the escrow accounts. Now, for those of our viewers who are not really sure about what this means, it basically means that when a builder sells you an apartment and you pay a certain amount of money, he has to make sure that that money gets used to build the apartment you have bought and doesn't move it to another project or doesn't move it to something else that he's working on. Now, that demand was 70% earlier. That 70% of the money that you paid get put in a special account that gets used for the building that's being constructed. It's come down to 50%. Ramesh, what does this mean? It's 50% across all markets across the country. Might that be perhaps unfair?
So some relaxation for developers, that 70 has become 50. But look at a city like Mumbai. Prices vary between 10,000 to a lakh. Construction cost typically varies between 2,500 to 5,000 rupees. Even the best projects typically 5,000.
So
I'm doing a project which I'm selling at a lakh of rupees in South Mumbai. but I have to keep 50,000 rupees aside when actually I need to spend only 5,000 rupees on construction costs. So I think that's definitely not reasonable to the developer.
Lots of people would say don't sell it at a lakh then.
But he's getting stuck. He can't launch newer projects. He's going to increase his financing cost, which will overall increase the cost of the end user product, which will increase the price. So it works the other way.
Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide on ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. We will soon have a real estate regulator across the country. The bill has been approved by the Cabinet, which means now it will go to Parliament, and after approval it will become an act. And we will have a regulator for real estate, just like we have one for telecom or for insurance or for the stock market. Very interestingly, everybody is calling it a game changer. It's a game changer from different points of view for different people. But that's what we're going to focus on right now. What does it mean for you and me as customers? What does it mean for builders? What does it mean for agents and brokers in between? Lalit, I want to bring you in here. Is it a game changer for the development industry as well? How do you expect this to change the way we buy homes and change the way you build homes?
It will be a huge game changer for developers. I think a lot of consolidation will happen in this industry. I'll tell you why and how. See, there are strict punitive actions for delays, for misconduct or even an allegation on misconduct. So what I foresee is, currently we develop a project on the basis of assumptions that we will sell so much and cash flow will accrue through those pre-sales. Now we can no more depend on pre-sales or flat sale during the process of construction. We'll have to tie up entire finance for doing the project, because if we have to complete the project in time, we cannot depend on cash flow through customer sales. Nowadays what we do, we load the basic FSI and then we load the premium FSI later. Now we have to pay premiums in advance, which we would have paid after 1.5 years or 2 years. That means there will be a cost of funding for that amount, which will be idle, so to say, till it becomes productive. So cost is going to go up. We'll have to tie up entire funding. So we may have to tap equity as well as debt and see that all four corners of funding requirements are tied up. There are no loose ends. Now that again means higher cost of project.
Ramesh, coming here now, also commercial property has been brought under the purview of this bill. It is a game changer, obviously, but do you think, like Lalit just told us, that the government unwittingly increased, the prices of homes one more time through all of this? Or is it a game changer in a good way? Because from what I understand, pre-launch homes can no longer be sold. I can't sell anything unless I already have all of my approvals in place, which to me as a buyer sounds like a good thing.
It is a good thing. So real estate will change from high risk, high return to medium risk, medium return. So if you look at two big amendments which were made last evening, one was getting commercial in the purview. I think it will help commercial occupiers. Second is under construction projects which have not got OC. So that's also been included in the purviews. Now our calculation is there's close to $200 billion of real estate which is under construction currently in the country. Now all those projects will get into the purview. 2-3 things to be noted here. 10 years back, JLL has a global transparency index. 10 years back, real estate in India, in terms of transparency, was rated opaque. It used to come in the opaque category. Around 7-8 years back, we moved it into the translucent category. And today, it's in the semi-transparent category. If you look at the overall FDI coming into the country, it's only around $1.5 billion which comes into India. Global real estate is a $500 billion industry. In that, we just get 1.5 of cross-border capital. So look at, if we can move closer to the transparency levels with these kind of regulations, we would attract a lot more capital into the country. The biggest problem today, which people like Lalit face today, is cost of capital. We believe that will come down once transparency improves, and there will be a lot more global institutional money coming into the country.
It will also separate the clean developers, the ones with the clean books, from the ones who can't keep up with
Definitely. So in terms of transparency, in terms of accountability, in terms of professionalism, in terms of getting the market organized, it's going to help on all these four fronts.
All right. Jayashree, we should talk about information, and this is something you and I grapple with on a daily basis, the fact that reliable information about a certain project is so difficult to find. Now, one of the things that this bill has pointed out is that every developer will have to come onto the website of the regulator and declare all the details of his project, and if in any way anything has been misrepresented from the carpet area to amenities, that there will be very, very strict rules and very strict punishment. Do you see this as a welcome move, that a customer, as a buyer, I can go onto this website and see what is reliable information about a particular property that I'm interested in?
Absolutely, Faye. First of all, can't you see the smile on my face that information is much easier to access than before? We have been championing for a long time that put more information into the market and the market will become cleaner. And that is precisely what this bill has done. It has made it mandatory to bring information that should actually be in the public domain. If I'm buying into a project, should I not know what the size of the project is, the number of units, what are the approvals that have been secured, what haven't been secured, when you're going to deliver, and if there are any changes in timelines, I should know it. Lalit said that the cost of homes will go up because of all these, these riders that have been put on them. But to consider the state of the market today, 70% of projects in the NCR have been delayed by at least 2 years. Now, isn't that cost of delay something that the consumer is grappling with? Of course he is. It is not something that a developer considers a cost, but for the consumer, it is a huge cost that 2 to 5 years projects are delayed, and there is absolutely no recourse for the consumer. And I think that this point about bringing information into the public domain is a great thing for the consumer. The consumer must be taught how to use it. The consumer must learn how to use that to analyze his decision, but I think it is a great, great move.
Lalit, I want to bring you in on the one thing that I found very interesting. The bill also says that if a builder wants to change a plan after he has sold, units, he has to get permission and, acceptance or consent from 2/3 of the people who bought those projects. Do you think that this is a good move? Because I know this is a complaint that a lot of investors and a lot of buyers have had, that they bought something and it turned out that the builder changed the plan and they were caught completely by surprise. Do you think this is a good move? I certainly do.
No, I completely agree. It's a good move. Only I think they will have to define change in what, because there is a larger layout. If the building is not affected and a layout is changed for better, I don't think those individuals get affected. So I think there will be clarifications. I differ a little bit in what comments have been made. See, developer delays do not only occur due to mistakes of developers. Delay does cost developer dearly. Now tell me that one Noida or that land acquisition issue delayed project by 2 years, 3 years. Now how do we commit to our customer the timeline? Delay is never good for consumer for sure, because they lose in EMI and the rentals. But delay also hurts developer. Please note this. Developer is no way benefited through delay.
Ramesh, obviously, I know you're in support of the bill in general, but do you also foresee some sort of disadvantages here?
Definitely, 2-3 issues here. One is, let's take a project which costs 1 crore. It's the unit price. Typically today, developers have a cost of capital of around 20%. So a 2-year delay means your project, by the time you buy, is going to be 1.4 crores. The developer is going to pass it to the end user. Plus, with all the VATs and service taxes and stamp duties and customs duty for all the materials, that's another 20-25. So just the government can make a 1.4 crore rupee project into a 80 lakh rupee project if the government actually supports. That's what is required. Second is, if you look at this entire regulatory bill, it focuses on 2 sets of people. One is the developer and the second is the agent. There are 250 sets of people who are associated with the real estate industry, consultancies, contractors, various suppliers. Who's going to regulate all of them? Third is, there are a lot of times buyers also default. So who's going to regulate that? So what if the buyer doesn't pay up on time? What the regulation today says is, you register, that's fine, but there needs to be guidelines on registration. Anybody can go and register. So these are things, fine print, which needs to be worked upon. It will take some time, but I think it will definitely help the overall industry, the big act in itself.
Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide on ET. Now we're talking about the real estate regulatory bill and how it will change lives for you and me as home buyers. One of the interesting things that popped up in the bill is sort of like a guarantee or a warranty on your home, where a builder is required to fix anything, any sort of structural defect that will arise in the first 2 years if you're occupying that home after it's sold. Lalit, I'm going to bring you in here. Again, that sounds like a good thing. If there's a structural defect, the builder is required to fix it. How difficult will that be to implement or to make sure that it happens?
Not really. In fact, it's a good thing. Structural defects have to be rectified by developers, and developer is responsible. So in Maharashtra it is 3 years. Regulatory bill provides 2 years. I don't mind even if it is 3 years, because structural defects are something which have to be rectified.
The other interesting thing is the bill has been very liberal with the use of fines on developers. The fact that the developer has to register all projects. Failure to register will attract a fine of about 10% of the project cost, which is massive. So do you think that this sort of thing will make developers sort of sit up and take notice and say, listen, you can't afford to make mistakes like this?
So 3-4 different fines. First 10% for not registering. Second 10% if it's not rectified, plus 3 years imprisonment. Plus you have a 5% for not disclosing, wrong information. Plus you have interest which needs to be paid to the allotee if the project gets delayed. So some of it is welcome, but it's all depends on how it's going to be implemented by the various state government authorities.
I mean, implementation is going to be a huge, huge thing to watch out for. But Jayashree, one of the other problems that we face from viewers or from investors or from home buyers who write into us is the fact that when they do have a problem, there's nowhere else to go but to consumer court. And consumer court is pretty backlogged as it is. Do you believe the fact that we now have a regulator and the consumer court, so there are two options, will that make things a little easier, or do you believe that the regulator will be pretty backed up as well?
Again, Faye, the devil is in the details. It depends on how the new rules are enforced. Having an authority to go to get your grievances cleared is a good thing. Obviously, the consumers are fed up of not being able to get their grievances addressed. So yes, it's a good thing. It depends on how each state authority ensures that these grievances are actually redressed. The enforcement is actually the key here. If it is enforced well, I foresee that consumers will not be so scared to put their money into real estate, and it could be it could bring the consumer back into the real estate market. But it has to be spelled out well, it has to be enforced well if it has to work well.
All right. In fact, just like SEBI has a SAT, there might be a necessity here for an appellate tribunal where builders can go and appeal, sort of rulings that have been done against them. But we've unfortunately come to the end of this particular episode of the Property Guide. If you have any questions about the bill or how it affects you as a customer, you can reach us. There's an email ID that you can reach us at. There's a Facebook page in which you'll find a copy of the show, and you can leave a message for us. If you want to reach me personally, there's always Twitter. My Twitter handle is at the bottom of your screen. Jayashree, Lalit and Ramesh, thank you so much for spending time with us this week. It's always a pleasure to have you come in and explain things to us. Thank you so much for watching.